Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Red Bank Public Library. This program is called Family Story Times on Race and Diversity. I'm the children's librarian here. My name is Sira Williams, and I'm going to tell you something that you probably already know. It's Black History Month. I know you knew that, but here's the thing. We're not supposed to just celebrate it at school or at the library. It's actually called National Black History Month, and that means it applies to everybody in America, no matter who we are or how old we are or even what our race or ethnicity is. So if we're serious about it, we're supposed to learn some Black history on our own, outside of school, outside of work, like with our families and in our homes. There's a million ways that we could do that. We could read books, of course. We could watch videos or movies. We could listen to music. We could go to museums. We could get online and do some research. But you're in the right place at the right time today, because we're going to read a great book that is going to get you started. And the book is called The 1619 Project, Born on the Water by Nikole Hannah-Jones and Renée Watson. And it's illustrated by Nicholas Smith. It's going to give you a lot to think about. It's going to make you ask questions, and it's going to spark conversation. And that's what this program is all about. And I know that every family is going to have a different conversation. And that's exactly why this is a virtual program, so that you feel comfortable to react and say what you think and feel in a safe space and in an age-appropriate way for your family. Okay? So before we read, let's talk about history for just a minute. Because history is the study of past events. It's super important because we can't really understand why our society is the way it is today without learning about our past. But this month is supposed to remind us that Black history is American history. I'm going to say that again. Black history is American history, and that means it's all of our history. And we just need to change our perspective and look at things in a different light. And I'm going to do something that I've done before. I'm going to do it again because I really want you to think about history in this way. If I take away the H and the I, I'm left with the word story. History is just a collection of real life stories of things that happened in the past. But we're going to focus on Black stories and consider how historical events were experienced by African Americans. That's a different point of view. And also to consider how African Americans influenced our American history. And the more you learn, the more amazed you will be. And you'll begin to realize that the America that we live in today just would not be without the contributions of African Americans. It's true. I'm not just talking about activists like Dr. Martin Luther King or politicians like President Obama, but also how about inventors of things that you use all the time? Scholars, athletes, scientists, artists and entertainers, astronauts. The list can go on. And it even includes everyday African Americans like me, and maybe you or others that you know in the community who are trying to make a difference. All right? So think about that, and let's get to our book. This book is really special. It's brand new. See the new sticker on it? And it's an origin story, kind of like a superhero has an origin story of how it all began. So I think that's really cool, and I'm excited to share it with you today. I want you to know that slavery is a part of this story, okay? But what's awesome is that it's not the beginning of this story, and it's not the end of this story, but it is a part of the story because it happened, and that's okay. Just remember that this is our history, but the more we can all understand it, then it will bring us closer and stronger together. And that's what we want. So please pay attention. It's written for children ages 7 and up, and the illustrations are fantastic. Keep your eye on them as I read to you. It's written in poetic form, and each different section has a title, so I will read that as well. And I'm going to scooch, so hopefully you can see. And let's get started. This is titled Questions. My teacher gives us an assignment. Who are you? She asks. Trace your roots. Draw a flag that represents your ancestral land. Most of my classmates can count back many generations and learn about the countries where their families came from. They draw their flags, but I leave my paper blank. I do not know where I begin, what my story is. At home, Grandma asks, how is school? I tell her about the assignment, how I couldn't finish it, how I can only count back 3 generations here in this country, where my parents, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents were born. But before that, I do not know. I tell her that I'm ashamed. Grandma gathers the whole family, says, come, let me tell you our beginning. Let me tell you where we come from. What Grandma tells me. They say our people were born on the water, but our people had a home, a place, a land before they were sold. 400 years ago in 1619, our ancestors were taken and brought here on a ship called the White Lion, a whole year before the Mayflower arrived. But before that dreadful voyage, there was a time when they did not pray for freedom. There was a time when they did not sing about overcoming. Their story does not begin with whips and chains. They had a home, a place, a land, a beginning. Their story is our story. Before they were enslaved, they were free. They had a language. They spoke Kimbundu, had their own words for love, for friend, for family. The kingdom of Ndongo was nestled between the Lukala and the Kwanza rivers on a high plateau in West Africa. The people were good with their hands, knew the power of a seed, how to plant it, water it, how to make something out of nothing. The people were good with their minds, good at math and science. They used shells for money, counting, recording, trading. They knew what their work was worth. They spoke Kimbundu, had their own words for joy, for grow, for home. Their hands had a knowing. Their hands had a knowing. They knew how to hold a baby close, how to rock the child to keep her from crying. Their hands knew how to mix herbs, how to get the just right flavor for a meal. Their hands knew how to beat and twist and shape iron, how to make gardening tools, armor, and weapons. Their hearts had a knowing. They knew how to make work joyful, how to create rhythm by pounding the tools against metal, knew how to make music to keep them company as they worked. Their minds had a knowing, worldly, curious, sharp. When they met the white people, they learned quick, taught their tongues to speak Portuguese, taught their eyes to read strange words. They knew how to mix the old with the new, how even an ancient people always had more to learn. And they danced. And the people moved their feet, moved their whole bodies to the melodies of horns and stringed instruments, of marimbas and drums. They danced to celebrate, to mourn. They danced as a way of worship, to offer thanks. Their bodies a song under open sky and bright sun. Their bodies a swaying testament to the beauty of creation. Stolen. And the white people took them anyway, kidnapped them, baptized them in the name of their God, stamped them with new names. Ours is no immigration story. They did not get to pack bags stuffed with cherished things, with a doll grandmama had woven from tall grass, with a baby blanket handed down from generation to generation all the way back, so far back that it carried the scent of the ancestors. They could not hug their fathers and mothers, daughters and sons, hearts thumping in rhythm, clinging to that final sweetness before the parting. No promises, whispered from mouth to ear, of seeing each other soon. Just wails and sobs, confusion, and wrists worn raw from shackles made of iron, feet split and bloody from the 200-mile march along the Kwanzaa River. They had no things, but they had their minds. The old ways, the harvest songs, the just right mix of herbs etched in their memories. They had their bodies, histories and bloodlines and drums pulsing in their veins. With trembling fingers, they braided seeds into their hair, defiantly hiding the tiny pieces of home to plant one day in new soils. No matter what some say, the people fought, and the white people took them anyway, forced them into the bottom of an evil ship to sail to a new world they had no desire to see. Ours is no immigration story. The White Lion. No one knows how long it took before they knew they would never see Ndongo again, never run along the high plateau, or throw their heads back in giggles with their best friends. Maybe it was the second month or the third, when they had not seen their land or any land for so many days, they could no longer count. Some could not bear the pain. They refused to eat. They shut their mouths until their hearts gave out. Others tossed themselves into the teal eternity of the Atlantic Ocean, swimming one last time with the ancestors. Sickness and hunger, filth and cruelty took the others, almost half. But those who did not die resolved to live, no matter what. Packed in dark misery, strangers chained together, head to feet, hip to hip, in the bottom of a ship called the White Lion, they saw that these strangers, men, women, children, kidnapped too, from many villages, these were their people now. These many people became one people, a new people. And that is why the people say we were born on the water. We come from the people who refuse to die. Point Comfort. Finally, the ship stopped moving and the people were dragged to the deck. They closed their eyes against the light of a sun they had not seen since Mother Africa's coast. They closed their eyes against the sight of a land that was not theirs. They cried a silent cry as white men spoke strange words, talking about their bodies with a handshake, traded another's child, another's mama and daddy, 20 to 30 beloved human beings in all for a few pounds of food and drink. 400 years ago, in the year 1619, the white people called this land Virginia, a sweet sounding word for a place of such pain, a sweet sounding word for the place where American slavery began. Tobacco fields. From sun up to sundown, the people worked the fields, growing and harvesting tobacco. The crops were sold to Europe, bringing wealth to Virginia, but the enslaved people did not get anything in return for their labor. The people worked and worked. When the people grew weary, they remembered their yesterdays, remembered their songs from Ndongo, sang them to ease their spirits. As they sang, they looked into the future, hoped for better days, planted prayers into the heavens, praying, praying, praying for freedom. How to make a home. After a long day's work planting tobacco in the fields, after brutal treatment, after nothing to show for their hard work, sadness would come, a longing for ndongo, for the mamas, for the daddies, for the friends they could no longer hug and talk with under the warm sun. We are in a strange land, they said, but we are here and we will make this home. We have our songs, our recipes, our know-how. We have our joy. We will love, laugh, sing, and hug our children as tight as you can hold a child. We will survive because we have each other. And so, the people planted the seeds they carried over the ocean, snuck to visit one another in the dark of night, sang songs, swapped tales of yesterday, remembering. And the people planted dreams and hope, willed themselves to keep living. And the people learned new words for love, for friend, for family, for joy, for grow, for home. We're in a strange land, they said, but we are here and we will make this home. We have determination, imagination, faith. We will survive because we have each other. The Tuckers of Tidewater, Virginia. 1624. Anthony and Isabella, enslaved on the plantation of Captain William Tucker and his wife Mary Tucker. Two ordinary people, forced to till the soil, forced to build a country they were not from, found a way to build a love for each other, to marry and create a family, a legacy. They did not know their family would be the start of a new people. They were just two ordinary people who had a son, a new beginning, a promise to live on and on. William Tucker. Hope is a promise, faith that better day will come, belief that things will not always be this way. Hope is refusal to give up, to die out. Hope is a child born. Way back then, hope had a name, William Tucker. He was born to ordinary people, a man and a woman who were not free, but who believed in freedom, who were not free, but who believed that one day freedom would come, even if they never saw it. These were two ordinary people who gave life to an extraordinary child, a child not of Africa, a child not of Europe, nor of the native peoples already here, but a child of the new people formed on the water, the first black child born in the land that would become the United States, the first truly American child. Resist. Life was hard and would get harder for the generations to come. White people told the people they were not human, that the people were things to be bought and sold and given as gifts alongside horses and chairs. When the people were beaten, they said the people did not feel pain. When they sold the people's children, they said the people didn't love. These were lies they made up so they could feel okay about slavery. It is wrong, always and forever, to own human beings. It is wrong, always and forever, to treat human beings like things. The people fought back. For 250 years, the people resisted every day in ways big and small. For 250 years, the biggest resistance of all was that the people kept living. Legacy. And the people who were born on the water kept living and living. It was illegal to teach enslaved people how to read, but they birthed generations of teachers and librarians, scholars and authors. They were brokenhearted, beaten, and bruised, but they became healers, pastors and activists, doctors and counselors. No one could steal the people's joy. They wrote songs and created jazz and hip-hop, rhythm and blues. They became inventors and athletes, nurses and cooks, pilots and architects, farmers and housekeepers, singers and artists, dancers and poets, mathematicians and scientists. They passed on their stories through the stitch of a quilt, shared secret messages through songs. The people survived. The people fought. And because the people survived and because the people fought, they finally got freedom. And because the people survived and because the people fought, America has equality in the law. And because the people survived and because the people fought, America began to live up to its promise of democracy. It is the people who fight for this democracy still. Pride. Grandma looks at me and my brother, tells us, this is why we say Black Lives Matter, why we celebrate Black girl magic, and why we believe we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Never forget we are their hope. Never forget you come from a people of great strength, Grandma says. Be proud of your story, of our story, your story. The next day, I go to school. I pull out my red crayon, my blue and my white. I draw the stars and I draw the stripes of the flag of the country that my ancestors built, that my grandma and grandpa built, that I will help build too. And I am not ashamed. I know what my story is, where I am from, where I begin. Wasn't that amazing? This is a great example of a story told from a point of view that you don't get in your school books. It's a Black story, right? Nikole Hannah-Jones, Renée Watson, and Nicholas Smith are all Black, and they are amazing journalists and authors and artists who were able to communicate this powerful story through words and pictures in a way that others would not be able to. And so that's why it's so important to read Black stories, to get that perspective on African American history, on our American history, right? And this story all began by a girl who just wanted to know her family story, her history. And so I would like for you to talk about what you learned from their story, from her origin story, and also talk about your own family story. Where do you come from? And what is your family's history? Because learning about your legacy gives you a connection to the past, and it gives you an understanding of how you got here and what everyone did to get you to where you are today. And it gives you a feeling of pride, and it helps you know that you have power and strength in your bones and your blood and your genes because of your ancestors and what they did in the past. And so I hope that you'll talk about that too. Listen, talking about that, you know what else I wanted to tell you is that history is never ending. This story is not over even though we closed the book. Her family's legacy is in her hands now, because she's a member of the family. She's going to grow up and add to that history. What is she going to do? Who is she going to be? She says that she's going to help build this country like her parents and her grandparents have done. And so that's exciting. And that means the future is in your hands too. And so now I want to show you my shirt. Have you been able to see it? It says, I am Black history. I am Black history. And I think about that in the two ways we just talked about. Number one, all those people that came before me, all the things that they did to get me to a place where I have the opportunities that I have, where I can live where I live, have the job that I have, raise the family that I did, and contribute to my community, is all because of them and their sacrifices and hard work. And so all that they did adds up to me. So I am Black history. The other way I think about it is, remember, what I'm doing now is going to be history for future generations. So that means I am Black history for them. And it goes for you too. What are you doing to make the world a better place for those future generations when they talk about you? We all got to try. We're all making history every day. So let's try to make this a better place. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Except that I always leave you with a little peace and love. And so I want to do that today too. I got my magnet board. So here's some Black story, peace, and love. Take some and pass it on, okay? And learn some more Black history this month on your own. Thanks for hanging with me. Peace.